COVID-19 and climate change are set to dominate day 2 of the UN General Assembly in New York. Reactions are expected to China's pledge to donate 100 million COVID-19 vaccine doses to developing countries by the end of the year. Beijing has also promised to end coal funding overseas. Will Denslow is in New York and he joins us live for more. Will, several developing nations have been highlighting vaccine inequality. Have there been more pledges made ahead of that US-led COVID-19 summit?
Well, Steve, that's absolutely right. As well as a number of developing countries, we also heard a stinging rebuke on Tuesday from the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. He said that the COVID-19 vaccine rollout was a moral indictment. He said that the world had passed the science test when it came to creating these vaccines, but get an F grade for morality now, or for ethics. And the stats very much seem to back that up. Around 90% of people on the African continent have not received one COVID-19 vaccine shot. The WHO, the World Health Organization, estimates that they've received just 15% of promised vaccines that have been delivered. COVAX has lowered its expectations for the amount of vaccines. It has down from 2 billion they've lowered that expectation to 1.4 billion this year. Now, we have heard some more promising news from a few of the world's largest vaccine developers. The United States is widely expected to announce it's set to double its purchases of Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccines. That's set to get it in the region of 1.1 billion doses through 2022. As you mentioned so rightly, China, they've pledged 2 billion COVID-19 doses this year, also pledging $100 million to the COVAX program. This virtual COVID-19 summit set to take place on Wednesday has one strong goal: to try and get other nations around the world to be more ambitious with its COVID-19 targets. The hope that has been laid out is to hit 70% of the global population to be vaccinated by this time next year.
Well, the US and China have declared big plans against COVID-19, as you mentioned, and climate change as well. Are other countries rallying around them for these initiatives?
That is certainly the hope. Talking of China's commitments, of course, they've said in that pledge by President Xi Jinping on Tuesday that they'll be creating no new coal-fired power projects abroad going forward. The US says it's doubling the amount of funding for developing nations in their fight against the climate crisis. That brings that figure up to around $11 billion a year. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres praised both those moves. He said that funding commitment from the US gets it closer to the global target of $100 billion per year. He said with China, he said that the reduction of coal-fired plants is the number one factor to keep the world in reach of that 1.5 degrees Celsius target that has been laid out by the US. Now, the Secretary General says the world has a long way to go. Of course, a recent report released just a few days ago said that according to current pledges made by members of the international community, the world is still expected to see a 16% increase in emissions by the year 2030. So the message from the United Nations is that more nations need to make far more aggressive climate tackling commitments as we head towards COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland in November. Steve?
All right, many thanks for that. Will Denslow speaking to us from the United Nations General Assembly in New York.